those of you who have been following along on my channel, you'll know that I just had a baby a few weeks ago here in London, and my cousin just gave birth to her first child 4 months ago in the US. So obviously, we have been talking non-stop about everything we've been going through, which sparked the idea for this video, comparing having a baby in the US versus the UK. Obviously, this is very general. Each pregnancy experience is going to be completely different based on the person and what city or region you're in within each of these countries, but I just thought I'd show you the, general differences between the two countries and give my thoughts now that I've been through it, and if I could do it over again, would I have decided to still give birth here in the UK or go back home to give birth in the US? So stick around to the end for that. So let's start with your prenatal care. In the US, your experience will vary depending on what insurance you have, so do keep that in mind. But in general, you see an OB/GYN for all your appointments, and here's a rough outline for your appointment schedule. Your first appointment is between 8 and 10 weeks, where they'll confirm your pregnancy with blood work and a urine test. They will also do a medical history review and most likely an ultrasound. Between weeks 10 and 12, you'll do a genetic screening blood test. This is also when they will tell you the gender of your baby if you want to know. After this, you'll have a monthly appointment up until your 28 weeks, where you'll do a weight check, blood pressure, fetal heartbeat monitoring, and routine tests like a urine sample. At week 20, you'll have your second ultrasound, which is your anatomy scan to check the baby's development and measure all of their limbs. At week 26, you'll do a glucose blood test to check for gestational diabetes. From 28 to 36 weeks, you'll have your checkup appointments every 2 weeks now rather than once a month. And then from 36 weeks, you'll have a weekly appointment where the only additional thing they'll do is a cervical exam to check and see if you've started dilating. Some doctors will also do a scan at 36 weeks to check the baby's position for delivery. They will induce you at 40 weeks and 6 days. In the UK, if you're going through the NHS, this is exactly how your experience will be if you have a low risk pregnancy. There is no variation in treatment like there is in the US based on your insurance. So you'll see a midwife for all of your appointments, never an actual doctor or OB/GYN. And here's a rough outline for your appointment schedule. Your first appointment is at 10 weeks, where they will confirm your pregnancy with blood work and a urine test. They will also do a medical history review. At week 12, you'll have an ultrasound and do a genetic screening blood test, which only checks for 3 things: Downs, Edwards, and Patau syndrome. After this, you will have a monthly appointment up until your 36 weeks, where they'll check your urine, blood pressure, and fetal heartbeat monitoring. Instead of checking your weight like they do in the US, they measure your belly growth. So they just measure all the way around and track that on a chart. As long as your belly continues to grow upwards on the chart and doesn't get stagnant or decrease, they consider your baby healthy. At week 20, you'll have your second ultrasound, which is your anatomy scan to check the baby's development and measure all of their limbs and tell you the gender. So a huge difference there between the US and UK. At week 26, you'll do a glucose blood test to check for gestational diabetes. From 36 to 40 weeks, you'll have your checkup appointments every 2 weeks. And if you haven't had the baby at 41 weeks, you'll have an additional appointment. The main difference is that these appointments are exactly the same as all of your other appointments. They will not do a cervical exam to check for dilation here in the UK. And they will induce you at 41 weeks, 5 days, so almost a whole week later. So the main differences between the two prenatal care experiences is that you'll see an OB/GYN in the US and a midwife in the UK, and you'll typically get at least 1 more ultrasound, 9 additional checkup appointments between weeks 27 and 40 in the US compared to the UK, and you'll get to know the gender of your baby at week 12's blood test, which is extremely accurate, rather than your week 20 ultrasound in the UK, which isn't as accurate compared to a blood test. So I personally paid for a gender blood test at a private clinic here in the UK at week 12, and it was £120. Now let's compare the actual experience of giving birth. In the US, most births happen in the hospital with OB/GYNs and nurses present. Option for both epidural and C-sections are quite common, as is giving birth in a standard hospital bed on your back with your legs up. Typically, a US hospital will admit you at any point during your labor and administer an epidural as early as you want one. This was actually my cousin's advice to me. Go to the hospital as soon as you start feeling contractions and get your epidural. Just make everything easier right from the start, because they won't turn you away in the US. Little did she or I know that this was not possible here in the UK. More on this in the next section. And typically your insurance will cover a private hospital room for both giving birth and recovery, and they will release you 48 hours after giving birth vaginally or 72 hours if you've had a C-section. In the UK, the focus is more on natural births with midwife-led care. Hospitals have both a labor ward and a birth center, and home births are also pretty common. Pain relief options like gas and air or nitrous oxide, epidurals, and water births are available, but the emphasis is on minimal medical intervention unless necessary. So you can only have an epidural if you choose to have birth in the labor ward, which is almost like a standard hospital room, but still most of them do have some birthing tubs in there, and you're encouraged to give birth in a more active way and discouraged from just like laying in the bed on your back. The labor ward is the only place that has actual doctors, so if you have any complications, this is where you'll give birth, but with no complication, your midwife will still be delivering your baby even in the labor ward. If you decide to go with the birthing center, this is where there are no doctors, no epidurals, no interventions. Each room is designed to make it feel more like a home birth with the decor, furniture, and each room does have a birthing tub. This is the option they try to push on you like heavily. I'm assuming because it's the least amount of resources used versus the labor ward. I remember right away when I told my midwife I wanted to have an epidural and to give birth in the labor ward, and my midwife totally judged me with her facial expressions, told me she'd give me more time to think it over, even though I told her I'd already thought about it and I really wanted an epidural. She just kept pushing. UK hospitals will only admit you when your contractions are 2 minutes apart for over an hour, so anyone who knows anything about giving birth is probably having a heart attack about now, because any book, article, medical professional always says you should head to the hospital when your contractions are 5 minutes apart. So it's a little bit crazy. You give birth in a private room, but right away you are moved to a recovery room, which has a total of 4 women in it. You can ask for private rooms if they are available to pay for, which is £85 per night without a bathroom or £150 per night with a private bathroom. But honestly, they're usually pretty full. Like, we asked every single hour when I was in recovery and we never got one. So you can try, but you probably are just going to be in a room with 4 people. Typically, you are released from the hospital within 24 hours of giving birth. 12 hours if you give vaginally, and 24 to 48 depending on your situation if you have a C-section. So the main difference here is the UK focuses on the most natural approach, which I do like to a certain extent. But I do feel like it's kind of just an excuse to give you the least amount of time, help, and resources as possible without going into too much detail about my horribly traumatic labor and birthing experience. I can say that after going through that and then talking to my cousin about her birth and hospital experience just made me truly feel like I got the absolute bare minimum, and they wanted me at the hospital for the least amount of time possible, wanted the least amount of resources on me possible. And I feel like the complications that I had would have been handled a lot differently and would have given me a much better birthing experience if I had given birth in the States. Now let's dive into maternity leave. In the US, there is no guaranteed paid maternity leave. The Family and Medical Leave Act, or FMLA, allows for up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave, but many people can't afford to take that long. Of course, it's unpaid. This is something where it really varies company to company, because since the federal standard is just no paid leave, you have to rely solely on what your company offers. So I know it might seem scary that the federal law doesn't offer any paid maternity, but over 75% of American companies offer some sort of paid maternity leave to full-time employees. The average is about 10 to 12 weeks of paid leave. For example, my cousin is a bank teller, so she works at a small bank, not even like a large corporate chain, and she got 12 weeks of maternity leave at 100% pay. So it's definitely something to look into for your current company, or if you're applying to jobs, as the paid maternity leave will be a huge benefit. In the UK, new moms get up to 52 weeks of maternity leave through the government, so a full year. The first 6 weeks are paid at 90% of their salary, followed by 33 weeks of £180 a week. So this is actually one of the main reasons why I wanted to have my baby here, because they're always advertising, 1 year maternity leave in the UK, it's so much better than the US. So I was super excited, but it's actually really horrible. Who can live off £180 a week, especially in London? Literally no one. It's such a clickbait or like false advertising thing in my opinion. So basically I just had to take 6 weeks at 90% pay. So again, already taking a pay cut, then take all 6 weeks of my annual leave, which of course I do get 100% pay. So technically it is 12 weeks total, but only 6 of that is maternity leave, and then 6 are my vacation days. Thank God we get so many vacation days here, or honestly, I'd be really screwed. So in my opinion, if you work for a good company in the US, you're way better off when it comes to maternity leave. This is something that is really, really important to research, because even my cousin getting her 12 weeks at 100% pay was way better than mine here in the UK. So I guess in the UK, at least you know what you're getting. It's just the standard for everybody. And in the US, there's a chance that it's worse, but there's also a chance that it's a lot better than the UK standard. Now let's talk about what most people are probably curious about: the cost. Like I said in the beginning of the video, in the US, this is going to depend on what type of insurance you have, of course. In general, having a baby can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 US dollars, depending on your insurance plan. And that's if everything goes smoothly. If you need a C-section or special care, the bill can be much higher. Even with insurance, families often have to pay out-of-pocket expenses like deductibles, co-pays, and hospital fees. So for example, my cousin has Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO insurance and pays $724 monthly just to have the insurance. Then on top of that, she paid $3,500 out of pocket to have her baby. But something to take into consideration is that her insurance was already $500 a month for her and her husband before she even had the baby. So it increased $224 a month when she got pregnant. So $224 a month times the 9 months, then add on the out-of-pocket of $3,500. So that brings a grand total to $5,516 to have her baby in the US. In the UK, childbirth is completely free for residents. Whether you give birth at a hospital, at your home, or in the birthing center, you won't receive any bill. The NHS covers prenatal care, delivery, and postnatal checkups. The only possible costs are for optional private rooms or additional services like I mentioned before. Now, I want to emphasize that I chose my words carefully, saying childbirth is free, not healthcare is free. I actually hate it when people say that. It was one of the main comments on why did I move to the UK video, because everyone kept saying, oh, because of the free healthcare. I'm like, it's not free. I pay roughly £200 a month for the NI tax, which covers multiple things. One of those things is the NHS or the healthcare here. So you definitely are paying for it. Nothing is ever free, but regardless of whether or not I have a baby, it's gonna be £200 a month for me. So yes, technically having a baby doesn't cost me anything extra. It's just the normal fee I would pay, which is nice. So from a purely money standpoint, having a baby in the UK is significantly better than the US because the prices are astronomical. But I will say you do get what you pay for. Talking with my cousin about her overall experience and all the support, appointments, and resources she got during her pregnancy, I felt like she had a much better experience than I did, whereas I got the very bare minimum for absolutely everything, which I guess, you know, makes sense when you compare the cost, but just something to think about for sure. So my thoughts, if I were to do the process again, knowing what I know about how each country handles it, would I have my baby in the UK or the US? 100% without question, I'd rather pay the money and have my baby in the US. It would have been worth every dollar I have to not have gone through the traumatic birth experience that I went through, and just felt like I got the best possible care throughout my entire pregnancy, labor, and my recovery. Yes, it is nice not having to worry about the bill at the end of the day, and that might be the most important thing to some people, but in my opinion, no dollar amount is worth your health or your baby's health, so I will definitely be having my next baby in the States. Now let's take a look at some culture shocks I had when I first moved to the UK nearly 2 years ago.